2 weeks from now. Yep. 10 days from now, whatever it is. You'll actually, if you come by the booth, you'll get to meet the developers, the guys that we don't let talk to people. So that'll be fun. They're always interesting. Believe it or not, our developers actually have personalities, even though one of them drinks Coors Light. They will be a blast. Yeah, Nick's a Coors Light drinker. I saw that face, Mark. He makes me sad too. Marnie will be will be helping out with the Forza Dash pre-day at IT Nation. And I'll be doing Marketopia's event, GrowCon, in December in Clearwater. If anybody wants to go to Marketopia's event in December in Clearwater, let me know. I think I can get some free tickets to that one. And the only thing better than Florida in November sounds like Florida in December. So if anybody wants to go to that, it's supposed to be a pretty good event. I just saw at risk client has no bacon on site. That made my day. So at Seven Figure MSP this week, I had some really interesting conversations with MSPs. We expanded into a conversation that I don't think happens enough in the whole MSP space. And it's actually really interesting. We got talking about shared responsibility. And Mark, would you grab Alex Panetta's email address and send it to, and just remind me to email him, because I'll get him an invite to that Marketopia event. Not that he's not bragging that he's already in Florida, but so shared responsibility is something that Chris talks about a lot with his folks. And if you don't know Chris Weiser, he's one of probably the most modern sales coach in the MSP space. He's really focused on risk. And as much as anything, he's focused on where the risk lands in your laps as opposed to in your customers' laps, and how they should own it. But in a lot of ways, they try and avoid owning it. So we had a lot of conversation around how other providers deal with it. And I think AWS and Microsoft are pretty good examples. So that's what these two examples are. The two rows on the left here are how Microsoft or how AWS looks at it. With AWS, you've got what the customer's responsible for, which, believe it or not, is their own data. Platform, application identity and access management. That's basically AWS telling you if your account gets breached and somebody logs in as you, it's not their fault, right? You're on the hook for that. And it's a pretty telling conversation, since most MSPs are not real good at sitting down with their customer and applying, I'm not going to say blame, but letting the customer know who's accountable for what. Does anybody here really feel like when you sit down and tear apart your entire stack and everything you ask them on a risk assessment, and even if you just went through CIS and went through the critical security controls, the top implementation group, does anybody here feel like your customer knows how many of those they're responsible for versus the ones that you're responsible for? Because we actually went through that exercise with some MSPs down there. We hung some big chart paper on the wall and had them go through Chris's cybersecurity risk assessment, which has a lot of those types of questions on it, and just put a checkbox in one column or the other: customer's responsibility, my responsibility, or a shared responsibility. I think this is an interesting conversation for you guys to have with your customers. And we're trying to talk through or figure out exactly how the right way is to breach this topic with our customers. We have an MSP who is using the new tags that we put on the risk assessment to tag every assessment item and show them as customer responsibility, MSP responsibility, or shared responsibility. And I thought that was a really creative use. It was actually what sparked me to take this as a talking point down to Seven Figure and kind of have this conversation. Noticed as I went through some of the things that are in some of our just basic default risk assessments, I kind of threw them in the columns that I think they belong in. Now, I may be right, I may be wrong, but here you've got your customer's responsibility, the MSP's responsibility, and then a third-party vendor responsibility, which adds another layer of complexity. Microsoft and Google don't have to deal with that. They are the third-party vendor. But when we look at it from you guys' perspective, does anybody feel like this is something that just absolutely breaks your brain and is something that we should be talking about with our customers? Is anybody having this conversation?
Absolutely. I think it's very important.
Yeah.
It only comes up when there's an incident.
Right. It only comes up
Like,
after something's on fire.
yeah,
And
or
then
it's
we
like,
get, I thought you were doing this.
yeah, or I had a conversation um, about the employee cyber training. That was where you said, because it's okay, you're providing this tool, you're providing the service, whose responsibility? They literally said to me, whose responsibility is to make sure my employees get the training done? And it's like, well, you.
Ask your HR department how you feel about me sending a nasty email.
Yeah. Well, I said, well, what do you have in your employee handbook? Because there should be a policy that says, we're doing this training at X interval, and then they're responsible for that. So it's either incident in my coming from the technical side, it's there's a lot of finger pointing in those, because it's like, I thought it was you, and it's like the who's on first.
Right. That's awesome. Awesome and sad all at the same time, but
Yeah.
it's definitely,
Yeah.
that's how it goes. So that actually brings up a great point. You mentioned security awareness training, right? And where does security awareness training really fall here? And you can see I have it blocked out here as a shared responsibility. And we got some pushback on some of these things as we talked through them in the boot camp. The question that really came back from this, and I'm trying to find, pardon me while I look for this, but the question that really came back from this was about communication, and how do we make this conversation with our customer? How do we make them aware? And what do we do with the things that maybe fall in the middle? And it brought up something called a RACI matrix, which is, if you've never done a RACI matrix, even internally, this is a super cool exercise. I just posted a link in chat, and I will pull up the document. I have it here somewhere. I might have to go download it. Yep, we'll just download it fast. Hang on. So the concept behind RACI is not just it's my problem or it's my customer's problem, but it also takes into consideration who might need to be. So R is responsible, A is accountable, C is what is C? C is I should know that. C is consulted, and I is informed. Right. So basically, if we're consulting someone, if we're insulting them, that's different. If we're consulting someone, we're basically getting their opinion on it and having them play into the process. If we are informing someone, then it's a whole different world. We're just saying, hey, we turned on MFA on your account. We'd like you to know. So if we look at this RACI matrix here, and the one that you download from Stakeholder Map is the one that I always steal and use. It's really interesting to be able to come in here and say, and basically what we would do is take each of those items we were just talking about. So it was in cyber or security awareness training. And these might be customer human number one. I can't type today. Vendor number one's getting a lot of work. All right, so it might look more like this when you do it with a customer, right? But this is, I think, a super powerful exercise to sit down with some of your products and services and, talk about who is, when it comes to backups, when you look at your data appliance, who is ultimately responsible for making sure that that backups are happening, right? That's probably the help desk, right? They are probably responsible here. We're gonna throw that in there. The accountable should actually only be able to be one person in every column. Who ultimately gets in trouble if that doesn't actually happen, well, it's probably the TAM or the VCIO or somebody at a leadership level, probably help desk management. But somebody should be accountable. So, I'm sorry, I did that backwards, didn't I? We're gonna go look at it. Accountable. Yeah, there's ultimately only one person answerable for this. That's accountable. I don't know why they make accountable orange, and I feel like those are backwards. But so here there shouldn't be able to be two of these accountable. That should be clear. And then the customer should be informed. Somebody at the customer should be informed when we talk about backups, right? So this is kind of how, and actually maybe it's the help desk that's accountable, and Datto is responsible, right? Datto performs the job. Third-party vendor does the work. But if a backup doesn't happen, it's the MSP's job to catch it, make sure it happens, go through the process. Security awareness training, your customer is going to be ultimately accountable to make sure that it works, while you're going to be responsible, and somebody on your team is going to be responsible to make sure that it's happening, right? And then somebody else over here might just get informed about it. But this is nice to sit down and really have the conversation with your customer and make sure that they understand which pieces of this you can and can't do. This is way more complicated, this RACI matrix, than simply 3 columns. And I think depending on where you are with your customer and depending on how highly compliant they have to be, you might take either one of these approaches. I think they're both really powerful tools, but as we sat and talked about it with the MSPs, they put so many things when we were working on those these columns. When we did the stand-up exercise and they walked up to the board and put everything in different columns, they put so much stuff over here in this column, or at least shared in that column, that when we sat down and talked about it as a group, it begged the question, do any of you schedule enough account management and VCIO time with your customers to even bring them up to speed on all of these things? So I don't know what the right answer is. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. As a software vendor, we're always looking for what can we do to make your life easier. Do tags inside of Lifecycle Insights give you part of the ability to start to show this to your customers? Is it something that you guys are that you think it's worth putting the work into to very clearly identify what belongs to your customer as a responsibility and what belongs to you? Feel free to chat about it.
Yeah, I think that also depends on what kind of services you're providing. We have some vCISO, and we're calling it Compliance Plus, so working on different policies like that. So I feel like this could change as well for what kind of services we're assisting the customer with.
So let me ask you about that specifically, because somebody brought this up to me. They said, when we build a client agreement, if it's 20 seats and we're charging $150 a seat, we're expecting to spend no more than 20 hours on that client in the month, or maybe 15, right? We got some tools cost and other things in there. If the help desk has a bad month and spends 14 hours on a client we expect to spend 15 hours on, and we've billed at a flat rate, it's really hard for me to justify going in and doing my vCISO services that month, or I'm upside down. And there's an inverse incentive for me not to do the things that are time consuming and hard. So to that point, are you billing your vCISO service as an above and beyond product, or are you billing it as a part of a flat rate product?
vCISO is an additional cost.
Are you billing that by the hour?
I'm not
a block
positive.
of hours, and you're expecting to spend 5 hours a month or 10 hours a month, depending on your client size?
I haven't had those conversations. I'm not privy to those as of right now, but currently our strategic engagement is built in at a certain price point. vCISO is an add-on that is billed with certain deliverables for that.
One of the vCISOs that was in the room, and I only ask these questions to get everybody on here thinking. I play devil's advocate a lot just to get you guys all to put your thinking caps on. One of the vCISOs that was in the room said, we bill it in blocks and they buy 5 hours or 10 hours or whatever. And at the end of the month, if we have 2 hours left, we go to their office and we sit with their people and we watch them work and we learn about how they do their job and find ways to automate and improve their business. Like we really actually spend time on, where can I automate your business process? Where can I make it easier and faster for you to ring the cash register, or take risk out of your environment because you're doing something that we didn't know about? So I just thought that was a really interesting perspective. I don't know who's doing it that way today and who's not, but thought it was cool. Kirk, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we have one plan and it includes the VCIO role. We're charging around 200 a seat right now. And, that it comes with the help desk and what we do monthly assessments and making sure things are aligned correctly, and then our quarterly reviews. And the left-hand side of the chart, the customer that comes up on the quarterlies, and let's say they get cyber liability insurance, then we'll mark it and bring it up 3 months before their next renewal to make sure that everything's in line. I don't like not doing it because then we're not being transparent. We're not finding potential risk. I mean, we're going through a situation now of, I'm talking to clients who are bringing on contractors that may not have our tools on, may be using their own devices, and going, let's pull back on that and make sure what the risk is from not only a security perspective, but an HR perspective.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm going to go pull up a risk assessment here, or but that is the worst graphic I've ever seen in my entire life. Let's get rid of that just because I'm tired of looking at it. So if I go look at an assessment summary, well, the summary doesn't really give me what I need, but that's okay. We're going to grab this assessment. Here is the summary. And then I'm going to add a couple of reports back here, and we're just going to kind of think through this as we go. And I appreciate everybody kind of spitballing and making this work today, because I feel like you're giving me even better feedback in some places than I got from the folks when we talked about this at 7-figure. But if we add the item detail here, and maybe we add it twice, I think that one of the things that we can do here is show them their assessment summary. Assessment summary, item detail. So this is going to be the ones that we've created exist just in our tenant. Shannon, you as you create them, they'll show up in your tenant. So as I build both of those, I'm feeling like if I grab grab the same assessment for both of them, and here I can apply the tag and say, this is my customer responsibility. And over here is my MSP responsibility. Oh, shoot, that was the wrong one. It was supposed to be this one. I'm breaking all kinds of things. And this shouldn't have a tag. So now when we present this report to the customer, we get to come down here and say, here's your assessment summary. Here are the things that that you should be doing that you're not. Here's the high level view. The things on that list that I'm responsible for include none. That can't be right. I thought I saw some.
Click yes on display tags. You'll see if they're tagged or not.
It looks like they're just not. Oh yeah, look at that. It looks like there's just nothing that, there was nothing that was yellow. There's only a couple of things tagged. But if there were a bunch of reds and yellows that were my problem, they would be listed over here. And being that there is one over here that's the customer's responsibility, it would show here. So this would give you the ability to put out 2 different reports and literally peel off a page of paper and go, Mr. Customer, these things here are your responsibility. These things over here are the ones that I'm going to be able to take care of when you say yes and stroke the check. But and I think the part of this conversation is now you can come back next month and say, Have we made any progress on your stuff? Because I made some progress on my stuff. And turn this into kind of a collaborative, and maybe you need a third one there that says shared responsibility. But I think there's some opportunity here maybe to show it to the customer in a fashion that's definitely, and maybe the answer is if you're only using those particular tags and you don't have all these other ones, maybe a single report just showing the tag is the right answer. I don't know. Are you using that show tags, Craig, or is anybody else using that?
I haven't shown tags in the report. We have a thing we did, which was we identified our top 10 security. So we tagged the top 10. So I did the same thing where it's
Nice.
a filter and it's just the top 10.
Got it. That's nice. I like that. I like that a lot.
We've been talking a lot about that shared responsibility stuff lately. One thing, the screen you pulled up with those things like incident response planning and data classification and business impact analysis and those things that I think about those as like strategic exercises. They're not really the tech who's going to run through it with you, and it's not really the
You're talking about
account
these
manager.
things.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like in the past, I was always trying to manage those as the VCIO function and be like, okay, these guys haven't done data classification yet. Let's get them through it. Let's get them through it, and feeling responsible for it. I finally just took all of these things that I think are exercises that the VCIO should do, and I made an assessment item. And I said, you've had one, you haven't, or you haven't had it in a while or whatever. Yeah. And then I just score it. And then I let the customer tell me when they want to do it. And now it's a lot easier because now they want to.
Are you getting positive feedback from that? Like they're coming back to you and saying, yes, I want to do this?
Sorry, I lost audio there for a second. That's actually been really helpful.
Are you getting positive feedback from that though, where customers are coming to you saying, oh, now that you brought all this to my attention, that this is really a tabletop exercise kind of thing or a thing we're going to do together? Yes, I want to schedule it.
Yeah. Instead of me trying to shoehorn it into a existing meeting that had other things that had to get done too, or trying to pass it to like the tech or the account manager to run as a one-off meeting.
I like that a lot.
The main difference is they're now saying, I want this, or I've been talking through like, if you haven't even identified all your critical applications yet with us, we can't do data classification of all the critical applications. And if we don't have data classification, then we don't know how important 2FA is to go survey who's done 2FA here and there, and kind of presenting it as building on each other. Right. And then once those are all there, then we can do a business impact analysis. And then once we have all that, we can do a meaningful incident response plan or a meaningful disaster recovery plan. But we have lines too about like, some of these are just free because they can be done anecdotally, but some of them then are paid experiences because they're much more involved, like a full incident response plan.
Right. Yep. That makes perfect sense.
The big shift though is using LCI to track, have they done it yet? And then display it back to them.
Last time they did it.
And display it back to them as, tell me when you want to. I want you to do all of it today. Tell me when you're ready.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Does that help anybody else? And does anybody else have questions about how and what Greg's doing there? If we really sit back and peel this apart, a lot of this doesn't get done because we don't have time for it. And if we find a method like what Greg's doing that lets us justify billing for it, guess what? We have time for it because we can now hire a human to do it. Because I would imagine if you really sat and took all this stuff and put it together, you don't have to be very big, 20, 25 clients before you have enough of this kind of work to keep a full-time human busy. So Don, it's okay. You'll get the recording for this. If there's anything left on it, if we dig into anything too exciting, we'll have some more on it Monday morning's email. So, and that it's funny that you say that, Greg, because one of the slides that I had out this week was actually, and I didn't snip it to steal it for this, but one of the slides that I used was kind of, a year into working with a customer. We talked about turning on some of the more advanced security things, but also setting up those conversations to say, hey, we should be scheduling to touch these things on a regular basis. And I didn't think to include, those exercise type items in here. I was just thinking about, hey, January is a great time to have somebody review your cybersecurity insurance. And just thinking my way through, like, how would we get our customers to start doing those next 5 things, those next 10 things. And I almost wonder if there's not a cadence that you set for this, that, you know, you have 52 weeks in the year. Is there, do you try and get your customer to commit to, you know, for the little things, 15 minutes once a week, we can knock out a policy, we can do a thing, we can just have a quick call. And if you did the same thing with every customer that week, would you get so much faster at it that you could just bang through it with all of your customers really quick and you'd be really good at it? I don't know if there's any value there or not, but it was this was kind of something that we talked about over the week, this week, which was just, you know, if you've got to do a policy, you might as well look at 20 acceptable use policies all at the same time, get in front of all of your customers, look at all their AUPs, do them the first week of the month, you know, and just do certain things in certain times to try and speed them up for your clients. Anybody else with questions, comments on any of this? I think, you know, somebody asked me about billing for VCIO separate, and it's had my brain cranking for so long because I tried to wedge it into that flat rate service plan, and it got me thinking. Well, that's all I really had for us to talk about today. So you guys made it easy. And Greg, thanks for chiming in and adding some value there. We will be back here next week. I don't know what next week's topic is. Sure, we have one, but I don't know what it is. So we'll be back next week, and then the following week we probably will not have this call. So yeah, Jeff, I do too. I think block time for CISO is and we got to be careful that customers don't feel like we moved the goalpost on them and went, it's all included, just kidding, billing for this extra. But it's, you know, if you can sit down like Greg did and say, these things are all exercises that actually take time. You have to invest it, I have to invest it, you know, we'll do it as often as you want, but you're going to pay for it. And maybe that'll help keep them from feeling like we moved the goalpost. But yeah, this is all we've got for this week. We will be back into a full session next week, and then the following week we will be at IT Nation with the full team. So by this time in the week we will be exhausted, and we will not be doing one of these. So you'll get a break from us in 2 weeks. A white glove package is clarify that for me, Brian. Is the VCIO on top of the white glove package? Oh, VCIO is extra for your standard clients.
Yeah, it's extra for our standard clients. We used to offer like 3 different packages. One was just our standard help desk, a mid-tier package, which is our help desk plus unlimited on-site troubleshooting,
Yep.
And then our white glove that was everything. And we sold so little of that mid-tier on-site one that we don't even discuss it anymore with new clients.
Everybody wants platinum or plastic. Nobody wants the stuff in between.
So we have a lot of our clients though that had started to engage us on like hourly basis for one-off VCIO projects, that it just made too much sense to not turn around and go, how about we just do a block time agreement? It covers all of your standard rate. They get it for X dollars, and then the bigger block time that they buy, the cheaper the overage hours are. If for whatever reason we have to get engaged on, they do like project consulting or anything like that.
I just, the more that I sit here and think about this, I just wonder, I'm thinking, my brain's going back to the days of the old day planner, right? And, you know, I feel like there needs to be the VCIO workbook, the VCIO day planner, where you're literally just flipping through it going, hey, we haven't done this page in a while, time to go back and do this exercise. And, you know, we were just literally in an education session teaching this stuff and spending time in workbooks and worksheets. But I think that people get a lot out of that. And I would encourage you guys, as you engage your clients to do these things, if you can come up with an exercise where they participate with you, as opposed to just where they come sit at the table and you do all the work and ask them questions, the more of an exercise you can make out of it, I think the more your customers are going to glean from it, and probably the better value that they're going to see in it. You know, and it's always nice to have that little workbook to take home with you. Well, great. With that, I think we'll cut you guys loose. You are 26 minutes early today. You got lots of time to go work extra support tickets, or call it Friday and run out the door. But appreciate everybody coming out. We will see you here next week. Alex, I will send you an email on the Clearwater event. I'm looking forward to being down there. It's one of my favorite areas anyway. And my dog
you
says I should be
pumped?
done. So what's that?
Are you pumped?
I'm stoked, man. December in Clearwater. How much better does it get?
I don't know. Doesn't sound convincing.
I might stay all week and do some house shopping. Like I might just stay. I might just not come home. I'm gonna send a pod back for my stuff. We'll do that. I'm gonna sleep on your couch for a week. That's what I'm gonna do.
Alex, I'm gonna need you to talk to Scott and see if you can pull some strings for me to come down to Clearwater with you guys.
Done.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. What I will do is I'll get Marketopia to reach out to Scott and say, you know what, Andrew has done so much for you guys. I feel like he needs to attend this event for free. All you have to do is get him there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Done.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. I'll hit Scott up in a little bit.
Thank you. Let me know what your Venmo is, and I'll just shoot you a tip.
I do, dude. There's no cost at all. All the cost is for Marketopia.
I hope that everybody has a great weekend.
Yeah. That.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good one. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.